Are you planning to produce apparel in small quantity in Vietnam? Here is my best advice. Reverse engineer what is possible based on your capital investment amount. Start with your initial capital investment amount, estimated manufacturing price, and from these two numbers, figure out your minimum order quantities. I call this reverse engineering your minimum order quantity, your MOQ. Most people assume that you must get the manufacturing price from the factory first, before you can decide how many pieces to produce. My experience is that you don't need to wait for the factory to give you their price to figure out the quantities you will produce. You can and should figure out your quantities before talking to a factory. Allow me to explain. How much financial capital do you think the average entrepreneur begins with? $10,000, $50,000, or $100,000? How much do you have to invest? Let's assume you have $50,000. With $50,000, let's say that for every dollar you spend on running the business, you have $1 for producing garments in Vietnam. That's a ratio of 1 to 1. This means you have $25,000 for running the business and $25,000 to produce garments in Vietnam. Make product. Now, focus on the $25,000 you have to make your garments in Vietnam. My question for you is, how much of the $25,000 for making product will be used for, wait for it, design and development? Remember, factories in Vietnam do not offer design and development services. Factories produce garments. They don't do design and development. So you have $25,000 to make product. I estimate that you will spend approximately $5,000 for design and development costs. Therefore, you only have $20,000 for bulk production. You can produce $20,000 worth of product. This is good information. It's a starting point. We now know how much capital you have to produce your garments. You might ask, why $5,000 for design and development? Well, my answer is, you will have to pay technical designers, graphic artists, and sample rooms to document your design details on paper and make multiple samples. In my experience, you'll have to make at least 2 to 3 sample iterations before you will be happy with your design. There will also be travel costs, sample shipping costs, and material costs during the design and development phase. The design and development expenses are a reality and often overlooked or not anticipated. Now, let's look at the numbers if you only have $10,000 as your initial capital investment. With $10,000 initial capital investment, you still have to spend $5,000 for running the business and $5,000 for making a product. This means that you don't have any money for bulk production because the $5,000 that you have to make the product will be used for design and development, and you have no money left over for making your product. The freelancers that you hire, they don't adjust their prices based on how much initial capital investment you have. So in this scenario, if you only have $10,000, you are in a pickle. It's a no-go conclusion. Do you see why knowing the initial capital investment amount is so important? I ask my clients this difficult question from the get-go, and often they are taken by surprise and sometimes even offended or defensive. If the business numbers don't make sense, then stop and rethink your plan. Knowing how much capital is available for bulk production allows us to see the quantity breakdown possibilities, which we will go over in a minute, and it also allows us to make a go, no-go verdict quickly. The ultimate question is your plan realistic from a financial perspective and keeping in mind the minimum order quantities that are imposed by the factories in Vietnam? If there is not enough capital investment, I'm not saying give up. I'm simply suggesting that we go back to the drawing board and devise a realistic financial plan. Okay, now let's go back to the $50,000 capital investment amount where we had $20,000 available for bulk production. Okay, imagine you have $20,000 for bulk production. First thing we need to do is estimate the manufacturing price. We will estimate the manufacturing price of the t-shirt to be $5. I will explain how to figure this out later. Then we divide 20,000 divided by 5 and we get 4,000 t-shirts. This is good information. Now the question is, will 4,000 t-shirts be enough quantity for the factory to say yes? Based on my experience, they will say yes to your order. The reason is most t-shirt factories have a minimum order quantity of at least 1,000 t-shirts per style per color. You're probably asking, Chris, how did you come up with $5 for a shirt? And my answer is based on experience and typical retail prices of t-shirts. I explain how to do the math and calculating the manufacturing price based on a retail price in the next lesson called Manufacturing Math. So let's look at some other estimated manufacturing prices. Here are some ballpark manufacturing prices for different products. Take a few seconds to look at the table closely. I got these manufacturing prices based on experience and by dividing the typical selling price for each type of product by 5, which is a typical retail markup if you're selling direct to the customer. Use your selling price and divide it by 5 to get your estimated target manufacturing price. I explained this in more detail in the next lesson titled Manufacturing Math. Of course, these prices will vary depending on the complexity of your product, quality control testing that you require, or special packaging requirements that you have. For the purpose of business planning, financial planning, these estimated manufacturing prices can be used to reverse engineer what quantities are possible based on your initial capital investment amount. In summary, initial capital divided by estimated manufacturing price gives you the quantities you can produce. Your quantities need to be big enough to meet the minimum order quantities of the factories in Vietnam, or else they won't produce for you because they will lose money. So, how much do you have to invest, and what quantity breakdown do you wish for? Is your plan realistic given the minimum order quantities required by factories in Vietnam? If you work with me, then we will spend time figuring out what is possible based on your initial capital investment. We will figure out if the quantities you wish for actually make business sense in Vietnam or not. If they don't, we will figure out just how much capital you will need and go from there. So in summary, decide how much you will invest. Estimate the unit price. Estimate the target MOQ. Realize what is possible. Make adjustments if necessary. If you don't have enough initial capital investment, then either raise more capital or meet the MOQs by rethinking your collection and the quantities per style. The amount of money you have to invest determines what kind of factory you'll be able to work with. Many of my clients, they ask me for a certified factory where the workers get a fair wage and have good working conditions. If you only have a small amount of money to invest and therefore want small quantities, then you may have to place your order in a workshop which may not meet your standards. Bottom line is, if you want to work with certified factories, then you need to meet their MOQs, and therefore you need a high enough amount of initial capital investment to get started. My best advice is to reverse engineer what is possible based on your capital investment. In the next lesson, we will calculate your manufacturing price based on your retail price and compare your profit to the factory's profit to understand why some factories refuse to work with you if you're doing small quantities. Thanks for listening and have a great day.
Hi, thanks for listening to the end. Can you see how producing your product in Vietnam will grow your business? Are you ready to grow? When is a good time to visit Vietnamese factories to get price quotes and samples? Contact us at vietnamfactorytours.com for more information about our consulting, factory introductions, and tours. Hire us to get you inside and find the right factory fast. Thanks for listening and have a great day. Remember, thoughts are things. Where there's a will, there's a way. Welcome to Vietnam.